Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome back to Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. So, man, we are looking at another Neo-Geo game. I know I'm on a little bit of a streak with these lately, but I decided I've had a little bit of a retro itch for the Neo-Geo lately. I don't know why, but it's just been looking into this stuff and playing it more lately, and I thought, what the heck, I already did two of the quadfecta. Is quadfecta a word? Trifecta, quadfecta, I don't know. Let's say it is. Of the four games that introduced me to the Neo-Geo, which were the ones that were in the launch era MVS arcade cabinet at my neighborhood arcade back when I was growing up, called the Fire Button, rest in peace. So, we did Ninja Combat and we did Super Spy. Now we're going to look at the third of those four titles, which is another Alpha-Denshi title called Ninja Combat. And, well, I haven't done a not-so-hot game in a while either, have I? Yeah, well, sadly, that's what this is going to be. This was supposed to be SNK's answer to, let's call it Final Fight and Golden Axe, kind of, I guess. It's a brawler, and I like brawlers. You know, I put up, in many cases, with some pretty bad brawlers. But this one is just, it's not very good. It was clearly smashed out pretty quickly because SNK went, we gotta have something to compete with Final Fight, which was all the rage at the time the Neo-Geo came out. So they were like, hey Alpha, put something together, and this is what we got. So, this game is not considered terribly good, and a lot of those launch era Neo-Geo games that aren't considered good, I tend not to agree with the sentiment. This one I do very much. It's a pretty bog standard beat 'em up, but it also has terribly unbalanced difficulty, an overuse, as you're going to hear, of really bad voice samples, and just some hilariously bad production values that you're going to see here. So the general idea is, there's a story, you're trying to attack the ninja tower, I guess, and your goal is to beat up a whole bunch of dudes on your way there. And this game has one kind of cool unique mechanic, which I will show going on, so the idea is you have your basic attack, which as you can see is this magic thing, which looks fairly powerful, and it sort of is. And you also have a jump attack, and if you hold it down, just like Golden Axe or anything else, you will have a special attack that will take one of your life segments. So, if you only have one life segment left, you can't use it, because it'll kill you. Pretty simple, right? And of course, there's weapons that are dropped on the ground, which is rather amusing, because while the weapons are powerful, they are very easily knocked out of your hands, and they have incredibly short range. Like you see, I have to get kind of right up in the grill of these guys in order to use any of the melee weapons, whereas I can practically shoot halfway across the screen with my magic weapon, and I can fire it so quickly that it kind of doesn't matter, right? This is one of the major problems that this game has. And you're going to see some other ones along the lines of the fact that the enemies generally fall into two categories in this game. There is either like really stupid easy cannon fodder, or like brutally hard stupid cheap will take out your entire credit's worth of life in one hit kind of guys. And that's kind of how it goes, which is what makes it really crappy. It's designed much like Magician Lord or other titles to be credit fed, and it does that. And you're going to see something hilarious here shortly. Let's blow this up. Number one, it's very easy to cheese this boss guy. And you want the best part? Look at this! Look at that! Oh my god, look at that perspective! That's so horrible! The guy literally walked across a railroad track that was not on the same level as he was. But it didn't... Perspective didn't change, it didn't sneak into the background, it didn't do anything. It just literally traversed a totally unlevel surface as if it was flat. And that's what I'm talking about with this game. It was clearly... This was something that SNK told Alpha they wanted a brawler, and they clearly had no time to make it, or just didn't give a damn. Okay, this is a pretty good ranged weapon. And this is kind of what you got. So, you see what happened there. So, that's the second category of enemy. It's either the cannon fodder guys, which admittedly are easy but can be difficult in quantity, or you have these guys, who have attacks that you cannot interrupt, and who take basically an entire life from you by hitting you just once. And as you can see, this is just... Ugh. Like, the balance is so bad. Like, what was nice about Final Fight was that it was nuanced, and you could actually use combos effectively. You were encouraged to juggle enemies around, because most enemies took a large number of hits. So you were actually encouraged to juggle and combo enemies around and really... There we go. And sort of be somewhat technical about your combat, let's say. This game, it's just a button masher. I mean, that's really the only way to play it. It plays almost like a shmup in that its idea is just throwing tons of enemies at you and making them either brutally hard or stupid simple. And to a certain degree, this is kind of reflected in the other weird-ass thing about this game, which is its scoring system. So, in most games, there were sort of two variants on scoring systems, and one of them was actually pretty niche, which was that you had the usual scoring system where stuff is usually measured in the hundreds, or the thousands. And then you also had, with some of the early 90s Konami-era brawlers, you had an interesting system where you actually just got 1 point for every kill. And your score was a measure of how many enemies you took out, and they were all valued the same. This game goes in between it. So, if you've been watching, you've probably seen the way some of the score ticks up. So, I'm just going to show you one of the interesting mechanics of this game. So, I was playing as this guy.
You're the man who... My name is Musashi.
This is rather hilariously bad voice acting.
After the last fight.
It's not very Engrishy, though. I'll give him credit for that. The English in this is surprisingly good.
Musashi is now one man.
So this is what's kind of cool. When you pass stages, you rescue different player characters, and you can actually choose them in between different levels, which is kind of neat. So, as you progress through the game, you're not required to stick with the same character at all times. The differences are mostly cosmetic. I mean, technically here, Musashi does have a different weapon, but it's the same core idea. Like, it goes, as far as I can tell, the same distance. Oh, yes. And here, of course, we had to have the early 90s sexism stuff. Oh, we're going to rescue these hot girls. Sweet, let's do that. And, oh, no! They're actually weird shape-shifting ladies who are bent on killing me. That's not cliche and pretty misogynist. Ugh. But, so to my earlier point, you're going to see the way the scoring system works in this game is very, very strange. So it's not like a game like Magician Lord, or like which was Alpha's other launch era game. It's not like a lot of other games where score is generally measured in the hundreds, but it's also not the Konami 1 point per kill system. It's a weird hybrid. So you see, it is scoring you different values for different enemies, but sometimes those points are like as low as 1 or 2. Sometimes they're like 20. Some bosses are like 50. It's a very odd system. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just a very weird way to do it. Like, feels like it's non-standard for the sake of being non-standard, if you know what I mean. Like, it doesn't have anything inherently better about it than a more traditional scoring system that's easy to understand if you spend any time with arcades or whatnot. But it's also not as simplified as Konami's system either, where it's not easy to say, oh, you have 100 points, so that means you got 100 enemies, which may be more or less than I got. It's a weird thing in the middle, so it's very hard to tell what quantity of what types of enemies you've taken out based on the score that you've got. I don't know. Like I said, nothing inherently wrong. It's just a very non-standard way of doing things. And that's what I find really weird and frankly not very good about Ninja Combat. Like, this I guess that's kind of cool in that this person wrote in on this weird plow truck thing. Which is alright. I mean, weird stuff like that is a staple of this type of genre. Yeah, this doesn't look suspicious at all. They're standing lit in a thing. Like, I don't get it. And so it's just like everything about this game is very non-standard. Also, this game, this is not necessarily non-standard, but this game doesn't reset your score when you continue either. So beating that factory high score is pretty stupid easy if you just feed credits into it. Now, as you saw there, those 3 ladies also did a ridiculous amount of damage. What looks like a fodder enemy is suddenly brutally hard. And that's what made this game really frustrating and turned off a lot of people, with good reason, is that the difficulty was so unbalanced and there was no curve to it. It just starts really simple and then goes, you know, off a friggin' cliff. And then gets really easy again. Get out of my way. And then gets really hard again, and it was just... It was designed to keep you credit feeding in the worst, like, sort of scummiest way, and that's what I hated about it. I mean, credit feeding was part of arcade games. I mean, arcade games were designed to make money by getting you to put a lot of money into them at a frequency. But there was a way to do that that was not... There's ways to do that that aren't gross and frustrating, and that's something Alpha sadly didn't get very often.
My name is Kagero.
Kagero!
I apologize for the way I acted before. I was testing your power.
Testing your
Please,
power!
Go with you.
Like, I'll give them credit that at least Alpha and SNK were rather hilarious with the Engrish, which, for those of you who don't know what Engrish is basically when Japanese game developers put no effort whatsoever into translating their games, and it ends up reading and sounding really, really horrible. And Alpha was very bad for that. I mean, there's plenty of English in Magician Lord, but there's very little of it in this game. They actually, I mean, it ain't exactly the great Shakespeare that we're reading here from this dialogue, but it's not terrible. So I'll give them credit for that at least. But this was the problem. I mean, Alpha, to be frank about it, Alpha was around for a long time, but they didn't produce many quality games. And the Neo-Geo could have been great as a brawler system, and it had some decent brawlers on it, but this was just so lazy. It's the kind of thing where you're like, why did this have to be a launch title? Why couldn't this have been held back for a few months longer for them to really do something good with it? Or was this really the best Alpha could do? If it is, that's kind of a bummer, because Final Fight is so much better than this. Most of the techno stuff is so much better than this. You know, the Double Dragons, the Combat Tribes. Games like that were a lot better. I mean, the Konami Brawlers, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, even the Simpsons. Games like that were so much better than this. I mean, this is almost comical with its hideous overuse of voice samples. The fact that every enemy sounds the same when it dies, and that it all sounds this like hilariously, purposely exaggerated way, which was clearly done because the Neo-Geo was capable because of the fact that cartridges could hold so much storage. You see what I'm running into here with balance issues. The fact that the cartridges could hold so much data really gave developers the ability to put a lot of voice in their game, and I'm pretty sure that SNK really wanted developers to do that so that they could really show off the system by going, you know, look how much voice we have versus some of these other guys. And there's a lot of it in here, but it's just, it's so bad. It's so bad. I mean, if you wanted to try this out, I mean, it might be fun to kill an hour with a friend. I mean, in co-op, this is probably more fun than it is this way, but there's just so many better options out there for brawlers, even on this platform. And it's funny because, well, this game never got a direct sequel, but it did get a pseudo follow-up, which I probably will look at in the not-too-distant future. See how that animation looked kind of okay. That didn't look as hilariously cheesy as some of the other stuff did. Oh god, what is that thing? It's like a mech dinosaur. I actually don't remember this boss at all, which is rather hilarious. But yeah, there's so many better oh jeez. And you see, that took me out in one hit. So you see what I mean about the balance here. And this is where most people, well before this actually, is probably where most people would stop playing, is they'd just be like, screw this, you know? This is just cheap. And yeah, so there was a follow-up to this called Ninja Commando, which I probably will look at someday because it is very, very different from this game. It is hilariously cheesy and in many ways just as bad, but it's very, very different. And it's one of the things where at least Alpha kind of went to their designers and went, well, nobody wants another one of the brawlers, so I don't know, do something weird with this quote-unquote universe that we made. And that's at least more interesting, and you can at least give that one credit for having heart, which this just doesn't really feel like it has any heart or soul. This feels like a game that was done by developers who really either didn't understand brawlers or didn't want to make one, but were given a corporate mandate to produce something. That was a rather hilarious death. And as you can see here, I mean, I'm blowing through this really quick. Oh, you're the dinosaur who?
You're the man who...
Oh no, he's apparently a man. Okay.
I'm Denver. They deceived me. I want to go with you to hell.
I am
Join
Denver.
the group.
I have been deceived. Oh, you see what I'm... Yeah. I don't know. There was a lot of stinkers on the Neo-Geo, sadly.
Finally made it.
For as weird a fondness as I have. And as you can see here, I mean, we're getting near the end of this already. As you can also see, this game isn't even very long. I mean, and...
If I remember right, there's an elevator.
There's an elevator! Ah! It just pains me. So, yeah, this is not anything particularly special, unfortunately. And as weird a fondness as I have for this system, it had its fair share of crud. And well, yeah, this is one of them. If you're into brawlers, you have way better options than this available to you. And if you aren't into brawlers, well, okay. If you are not into brawlers, this is most certainly not going to convince you whatsoever. But if you want to play it, if you actually want to try it out, either just to maybe, you know, test your calibration bar for quality or whatnot, this is available on the Wii Virtual Console system, and it was also in, what was it called? SNK Arcade Classics Volume 1, which came out for the PlayStation 2, the PSP, and I believe the Wii as well. So it is in a few different places for you to try it out, but you've seen a substantial amount of the game already, and oh god, he fell over sideways on a fence thing, and yeah, I'm done with this. So yeah, it's not good, and you should definitely look elsewhere if you're looking for good brawler fun, either on the Neo-Geo or elsewhere. But I wanted to look at this quadfecta of launch games, and well, some games I remember from my past are not good, and we gotta talk about those too sometimes, don't we? But yeah, that is Ninja Combat, developed by Alpha-Denshi Company and published by SNK Corp in 1990 for the Neo-Geo. Go elsewhere. Seriously, unless you're a glutton for punishment, don't even waste your time with this. Go play Final Fight instead. We'll talk about Final Fight someday. That's a really good game. Maybe you should go try that instead. My name has been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.